Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. So the other day, Chris at Honest Outlaw did a really good video, you should watch it, of his 15 favorite handguns. And it's a good list. I mean, most of those guns would be on my list too if I owned them. But since one of those guns that he showed of the 15 is worth more than it cost more than I could get for all 11 of my guns that I'm going to be showing you. So it's going to be a very different list. Not only because the guns are dramatically less expensive in many cases, but also because Chris and I are different people. We have different shooting interests. I haven't shot competition seriously, if you could call my competition shooting serious, in decades. We do have in common that we like to shoot fast, and we like guns that shoot fast. So we do have that in common. The other difference is I like guns that I've worked on, or that I've built to be exactly what I want them to be. So you're not going to be able to trot out into the store and buy a lot of these guns. And no, I won't make them for you because I'm not a professional gunsmith and do not have an FFL of the sort that would allow me to do that. So, why 11 guns? Because that's as far down as I could get it. I tried to trim it more than that, and I just couldn't. Because there was a couple guns that I just couldn't leave out. And since the limits are arbitrary, I saw no reason not to just include them all. Now, this is guns under a century old, because there's no way I could have trimmed this list down to a reasonable size if I included guns over a century old. Because some of my favorite pistols are, and I have literally gone to the range with 8 pistols in my case, and none of them were under 100 years old. Because I like old guns too. So that's going to be a separate video. And by the way, I shoot all of those guns that will be on that list. Not as often as the ones on this list, because they're old and most of them take weird ammo. Now, there is one exception on this. I could not leave it out, even though it's over a century old, but technically it's still in production. So, my house, my rules. And I'm jiggling the camera leaning on the table. That's professional. That gun is this. It's a Smith & Wesson M&P Model 1902, much modified, and we'll get into why it made the list on the tabletop. Okay, so when I first saw this Smith & Wesson Model 1902 at Pinto's Gun Shop, it had a 6.5-inch barrel, despite having fixed sights, a set of really huge Packmare grips, which did not suit the gun, and in fact they were so big that even with my gorilla hands I found them too large. And it needed some stuff. First of all, it needed the incredibly hideous finish removed. It looked like some kind of weird coating, but in fact it turned out that a previous owner had rust blued it and botched it so that there was a fine pitting over the entire surface of the gun. And it was pretty awful, and it took forever to rectify that, after which I rust blued the gun myself correctly, and then I started making changes, because I had absolutely no use for a 6.5-inch barreled 38 special, with fixed sights, no less. The first thing that went was the grips. I've replaced them with a variety of grips over the years, and finally settled on these, some nice antler grips I made for it, because antler is cool, along with this rosewood grip adapter that I made in the style of a Tyler T grip, in that there are little thin metal prongs holding it in place. And that provides a very satisfactory grip. The next thing I went to work on was the trigger, which was pretty good when I got it, but it wasn't good enough. So now the double action is 6.5 pounds and very smooth. You can almost stack it, but not quite. You have to stroke through the trigger, and it's very good for that. I also bobbed the hammer, which I checkered the top of so that it can still be thumb cocked, by me at least, with my gorilla hands. Now, I carried it for a while as a 3-inch, but then I decided I had always wanted a snub nose K-frame. So I made it a snub nose K-frame. And I made and mounted a new front sight, enlarged the slot at the rear somewhat, and did things like, well, this is when it was a 3-inch gun. I relieved the trigger guard on this side so that your hand can get on the trigger, your finger can get from the safe position onto the trigger very fast. I also shortened the ejector rod. And I intended to put a crane lock in, a little crane detent. But honestly, it just isn't necessary. The gun works fine without it. I also smoothed off the trigger and put some serrations under the trigger guard, as I like to have, which helps lock in my offhand when firing with 2 hands. Sorry, it's an unfamiliar setup, so I'm having to keep an eye on framing more than usual. And it's not my best thing to begin with, frankly. But, you know, it's a solid revolver and that I'm really pleased with, and it's the gun I learned to work on Smith & Wessons on. And it just has too much sentimental value for me not to have included it here, because it is an absolute favorite gun. And I still trot it out and shoot it, though I don't really carry it anymore. But yeah, there's just no way I could not have this in with the favorites. By the way, I should mention that aside from number 11 and number 1, these are only in rough order, and this one would have placed much higher, but for circumstances that I will explain presently. This is the Slab. This is a 2011 that I put together, and it has a JEM Guns chassis, a modified STI grip module, polymer grip module, Fusion Firearms slide, an RIA barrel that I ported myself, and a JEM recoil system. Internal parts are a mix of whatever was to hand, Wilson Combat, and EGW, and the safety and slide stop, come on Mike, they are clonimous. And the trigger, I believe, is also clonimous. Now, I did the cut on the front of the slide to expose the barrel because the way bull barrels work, it doesn't affect lockup, or at least consistency. I then hand filed in a Sig Sauer dovetail because I had a Sig Sauer fiber optic sight on hand. And I fabricated the rear sight out of aircraft aluminum here in my shop. And it is more about rapid acquisition than precision. That's a EGW ultra lightweight hammer. Ambidextrous safety. I retextured the grip, paint's wearing away a bit, and reshaped the grip, so this nice V at the back, so it fits my hand really well. And trigger pull is about 3.5 pounds. Very, very crisp with a very short reset. Yeah, even for a 1911, it has a very short reset. And this is a gun I built for the express purpose of shooting accurately very, very quickly. It is, by the way, a 9mm, in case I forgot to mention that. And I had an idea that I might shoot ASI matches with it or something, but I haven't yet, and it's just really, really nice to shoot. Now, the reason it's so low on the list is I'm not keeping it. I'm selling it to a friend, CJ, you've actually seen him on videos, because after a time I realized something important. I wanted to make this gun more than I wanted to keep it. As strange as that sounds. This gun was all about making a gun that was simply amazing to shoot, that would do exactly what I wanted it to, which is fire accurately with ridiculous speed. And it does that. And once I had accomplished that, I flat topped the slide myself. Once I had accomplished that, the only time I ever took it at the range was for other people to shoot it. And shoot it they did. And so basically, it just sat in the safe until it was time for me to let someone shoot it, so I could see the look of slack-jawed amazement on their face after they fired a shot or two, because it literally feels like it has no recoil at all. And it comes back on target instantly. And, it does everything I wanted it to do. But the only thing I use it for is to impress people. And I don't need to keep a gun if that's all I'm doing with it. Also, I needed to pay for the JP Sauer & Son drilling that I picked up recently. So this is going to a new home with a good friend who is very excited to get his hands on it. This one might be a bit of a surprise. This is my PSA Dagger Compact, 9mm, and it is in an unusual configuration because it's got the mass driver compensator that I tested on this slide. But I have used this gun, abused this gun, and beaten the ever-loving shit out of it, testing optics and other equipment, and it just soldiers on. It just keeps working. And and that's really cool. It's become a favorite gun because of that. Now, the slide that I normally use for testing, a friend of mine needed a Glock 19 slide, so I made a deal with him and stuck this one on it. And it has a sight now, after having broken it off several times on the other slide. And this one is still holding up because I haven't done things like throw it 30 feet onto rocks and gravel, although the fiber optic is missing. And it is modified. This is an LFA slide. I changed the grip angle to mimic a 1911 grip angle because when I was first getting used to optics, I was having trouble picking up the dot with the Glock grip angle. So I changed it. The strategic application of JB weld and some grinding and then retexturing. And it is just a ridiculously solid gun. I've put thousands of rounds through it, mostly with the other slide on it. But, and I have just savagely abused it in the course of reviewing other products. And it just keeps working. It's ultra reliable. The trigger from the factory was better than a stock Glock trigger, and it's only gotten better. And it's still just a Glock trigger basically, but it's gotten to be it started out pretty good, and it's gotten to be really, really good as things wore in. And I made a couple of little changes, polishing and things internally. But I am just deeply impressed with the gun, because it has put up with so much and just soldiers on like a champ. And, gotta love that. Now, understand something, this is a very budget gun as its basis. And quality on these has proven sometimes to be uneven. Overall, it's very, very good, but once in a while someone gets a bad one. So you pay your money and you take your chances. On the other hand, I've never had anyone come up with problems with one that weren't pretty easily fixed. So there you have number 9. Coming in at number 8 is my Smith & Wesson Model 642. Unsurprisingly, much modified. And this is a gun that belonged to a friend of mine, and he carried it on duty for years, and eventually passed it along to me, at which point I began to mess with it. First thing I did was make this set of stocks, which I'm not sure I remember what they are. I think they might be Paduk. I don't know. But they are set up specifically for my hand. And 2 fingers go here, 1 finger curls up under here. The grip is set up for that, and I grip the gun very, very high. And the gun fits, the grip fits me like it was made for me. Duh. And I did some other modifications. I made a big dot fiber optic sight for the front and mounted a rear sight, which I have no idea where the rear sight came from. It came in somebody handed me a box of sights from a gunsmith that had closed down, and it was in there. But I cut a dovetail with files and put it on there. I also did, for no good reason, 40 line per inch serrations along the top here. And cut away again the front of the trigger guard on one side for unfettered access to the trigger. Grooves on the bottom for the offhand. And weirdly, I did not do much to the trigger. It doesn't have, in fact, I don't think I did anything to the trigger. It doesn't have a custom trigger, but it's pretty good trigger. Double action is not light at about 9 pounds, but it's very, very smooth. And this was my pocket carry gun for years. And and I refinished it in this Magpul Stealth Gray gun coat. And as I said, it was my pocket gun for years. And I enjoy shooting it. So I'll trot it out to the range every so often when I'm in a 38 kind of mood. And it's just been a really great, useful gun. It's so light and it's so easy. And this was my no shits given gun. You know, I look at the holster and the mag pouch and all that stuff and go, oh, for God's sake, I'm just going to the gas station for a pack of smokes, and throw this in a pocket. And, you know, it served very well. And I really like it, and I like what I've done with it. And just a good, solid, reliable gun. Next up at number 7 is my Sig P365, which replaced the Model 642 as my pocket carry gun. And so this gun originally belonged to my friend Leah. And Leah is the second most gun crazy girl I know, and she can't leave anything alone. So when I walked into Rain City Shooting Center and saw this gun in the case, I said, at a really decent price, I said, is that Leah's gun? And they said, yes. And I said, I will have that. And there are reasons for that. Now, this has the Wilson Combat Grip Module, standard 10-round magazines, and it's what she did on it that makes it special, aside from simply the fact that my friend worked on it so much, is that the trigger is fantastic. And that reset is like the crack of doom. And it's relatively short. And the trigger is nice and light without being too light. It's super smooth. And I shoot this gun extremely well for, you know, a micro. And it's just a fantastic gun. It has been incredibly reliable. And, you know, it's just everything I would want in a P365. And it's small enough for pocket carry, if you're, you know, as big as I am. And it's just, I'm really happy with this gun. It's really, really good. Now, I did add some textured panels here as sort of a gas pedal or reference point. And as I always do, some texture under the trigger. But that's the only thing I needed to do to this gun, and it is the only thing I did do to this gun. It is great, and I love it. Really good gun. It is still my pocket carry gun of choice. At number 6 is my Custom Commander, which regular viewers of the channel will recognize as my pooping in the woods, oh my god, is that a bear gun? And this is a gun that I put together specifically as a sidearm for while I'm hunting, because excrement occurs, so to speak. As you can see, it ejects the magazine quite positively. Good one, Tinker. Hand cut 20 line per inch checkering on the front strap. Hand cut 20 line per inch checkering under the trigger guard for that grip I love so much. Ambidextrous safety. It has a Novak style rear sight and just a normal Colt style front sight. Again, it has now this is a Rock Island slide and a Sistema Colt frame that I turned into a bobtail because I hadn't done a bobtail and I thought it might be nice on this gun. I think that's a Wilson Combat Grip Safety, I don't know. It was in the bin. As usual, the slide release and MB safety are from Clonimus. The trigger probably is, I don't remember. Slide barrel and barrel or Rock Island, and EGW full-length guide rod recoil system, and the bull barrel, as on the Slab, is ported to get it back on target just a little bit faster, and the front of the slide is cut to accommodate that. And again, say it with me, it doesn't affect the accuracy because the bull barrel settles consistently into the same position because it bears here and here. And it's not like there's a ton of room for it to move around anyway. I can't get any movement out of it at all. And it's a very good shooting gun, 45 ACP. I handmade the grips with my the Maker's Mark from the days when I was a full-time knife maker instead of a retired knife maker, with a nice texture on them. That was done with a 2.5 millimeter carbide ball and a Fordham tool. And it's very handy. And for a while I was using it as my EDC because I kept wearing it around to test around the house and shop to test different holsters, and found myself just carrying it all the time. But that passed. It's a great gun. It shoots great. I really, really enjoy it. And it fills a arguably necessary role in my gun cabinet, my gun collection. And it's just, as I say, it's really nice to shoot, and I really enjoy it. In the number 5 slot is my new EDC. This is a PSA Dagger Micro frame, which is the same as a Glock 43X frame in terms of size and magazine. And it has a Kinetic lightweight slide with a ported barrel and a Siley Cat optic. And this was a birthday present from the aforementioned Leah, which I thought was a very wonderful present. Now, this ties over with the P365 because I was very surprised to see the P365 for sale because she loved that gun. Then she got a Glock 43X and no longer needed the P365, and I never understood that because I never thought about the Glock 43 much. It was just a small Glock. But then I fired this and I understood, because it's a pretty reasonably good Glock stock trigger, but the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I fired this next to her 43X, and her 43X was just as good, and right out of from my first magazine, I could fire this pistol just unreasonably well for my first shots from a new pistol. It was great, and I got it. I understood. It's just kind of hits a sweet spot between the reciprocating mass, the recoil system, the ergonomics, and the ergonomics on this I do find better than on a 43X, but you know, that's a personal thing. And it just works, and it works so well, and it's light, and it's ultra reliable, and it just, God, it shoots good for what it is. I mean, it's probably the best shooting micro I've ever experienced. It's just a fantastic gun, which gives you an idea of how good her 43X must be if she gave me this. And it's fantastic. A friend of mine named it. He first saw it, he said, "Oh, peanut butter and jelly." And it has now been forever after in my brain, PBJ. But it's a fantastic gun. It shoots just way better than it should, or at least I shoot it way better than I think I should. And it's great, and I carry it every day. And it's just wonderful, and thank you so much, Leah. And I have not modified this gun even the tiniest bit since I got it. It has the texture under the trigger guard. It has the texture at the reference point. The texture on the grip, I usually like more aggressive, but it's fine. I just don't see any reason to change it. Yeah, this definitely belongs on my favorite guns list. Now, it does not have suppressor height sights, but there are the 2 fiber optic dots in the optic, and if I use the front sight with those, I just have to remember to aim low, but it works fine. I just really like this gun. Number 4 is the Tisas Zigana FC. Now, this is currently wearing a Streamlight because I'm going to do a video where I compare shooting it with and without the Streamlight, because there have been people saying that reviewers that test brand new guns with a light on them are giving the gun an unfair advantage in the review. So I thought, what the hell, I'll shoot them side by side and, you know, see if it really makes that big a difference. But that video is still upcoming. Now, this gun has a story, as all of these do. A channel benefactor gave me a example that had been a show gun. Now, these are guns that are not firing guns, and you know, they have holes in the bottom of the barrel. They're missing some of the firing parts, and they are specifically brought into the country for people to handle at gun shows. And you can't really make them into firing guns because the parts for these were just not available. But I was really impressed with it, and really sad that I couldn't make it a firing gun. And so when these came up on SDS website for a stupidly cheap $299, I snagged one immediately. And that was not a bad decision, because oh my God, this is a good gun. Now these come at $299. These come with a hard plastic grip. This is the neoprene grip off the show gun because I like it better. And I'm not usually a big fan of finger grooves, but these ones just happen to fit me perfectly, and it just gives a very, very nice grip. And this is an extremely well-made and well-fitted gun with ported barrel, ambidextrous hammer drop safety, which I prefer one that just drops the hammer and then reverts, but I can live with it. And the trigger on this thing is crazy good for a stock gun, let alone a stock gun that I paid $299 for. This compares with a really good factory Beretta 92 trigger. And the single action is even better with its 1911 like reset. And it's just so nice to shoot this gun. I was blown away by it. And I did a 1,000-round review for this gun faster than any other gun in history because I just wanted to keep shooting it because it's just that good. And the other reason for the light is that this is doing duty right now as my nightstand gun. Got to have a light on one of those. And it's just, I am so impressed with this gun. The quality, the workmanship, the fit and finish. I mean, if branding weren't an issue and someone was asking $700 for this gun, I wouldn't bat an eye at the price. It's just, I mean, look at this. It's just, it's ridiculous how good this is for the price. And I love the hell out of it. And I am shooting it. I still shoot it regularly. And since I've drafted it into nightstand duty, I'm shooting it even more, and I'm very happy to be shooting it even more. At number 3, we have my Detonics Mark 1 Combat Master 45. This gun was actually probably made while I worked at Detonics, although I didn't get it until decades later. And I did work at Detonics for briefly, I don't know, a year or something, in the mid-'80s when they were in Bellevue. I mostly worked on the Pocket 9s, and which were a dreadful gun. But anyway, a few years back, my lovely wife Linda bought this for me for my birthday because I was pining for a Combat Master. I had two of them in the 80s, actually 3 of them in the 80s, and I had a custom long slide Scoremaster that I shot IPSC with. And so I have a great affection for the Detonics guns. And when I got it, this one was stock, except for it had a Wolf tapered single coil recoil system. And it's just not, I know short guns are hard on springs, but you know, the Detonics units last decades. And I was unimpressed with the Wolf spring, and I replaced it with an EGW flat wire recoil spring. So there's just a single spring, but it works very, very well indeed. And this has a captured recoil system, which is pretty advanced for 1979 when these guns were implemented as a production gun. And these are the factory sights, which I painted orange because that's how I roll. And it has the stubby hand hammer and no grip safety. And this is, now, here's where the purists are going to cringe because I modified this gun, which of course ruins its collector's value, and who cares? I am never parting with this gun. I mean, until death do we part. So hand cut checkering on the front strap, undercut trigger guard, checkering under the trigger guard, as is my habit, although this is 40 line per inch checkering. Checkered flat mainspring housing that has been blended in to the magwell funnel. And I have replaced the trigger with a unit that I liked better. And this is a fantastic gun. Up until very recently, it has been very reliable. Now, the 40-year-old magazine is showing its age, and I'm starting to have a few issues, which I will rectify. Just haven't got around to it. Oh, and I made this aircraft aluminum base plate with checkering on the front strap, which gives me a full 3-finger grip on the gun without compromising concealability. And this was my concealed carry gun for a while. I'd had different grips on it. They were kind of a white American holly. And when I happened across some nice desert ironwood a couple years ago, I made this set of smooth desert ironwood grips for it. And These guns are really remarkable because if you're not using very stout loads, they come back on target so fast with that short, light slide. Detonics actually measured it. This cycle's 30% faster than a government model. And so it just comes right back on target. And I discovered clear back in the 80s, these are double tapping machines. And just great. I have shot an ASI match with this, and I love it. But I have moved on to other options for EDC. I would still carry this once the magazine issue is fixed. I would totally still carry this because I just love it, and I've got a lot of history with it, and I have put a lot of rounds downrange from this and its ilk, and it's just fantastic. Number 2 is a gun that I have recently reacquired, the Prodigal 1911. This started life as a Tisas Defender 45, which since that time it has been a 9mm experimental gun with an extended dust cover that ran all the way to the end of the slide. It has and had a fixed weight with a 3.5-inch slide and barrel. It was a 45 version of the same concept, and eventually I decided to make it a gun for action shooting international guns. So it is a purpose-built race gun, and to that end it has a competition trigger. This trigger setup, not that this is just a run-of-the-mill extended trigger with an over travel stop. It has a big surprise EGW recoil system, full-length heavy guide rod. Actually, the guide rod might be Wilson Combat, and it has a custom reverse recoil plug. Despite the fact that it's a bushing gun, I had to modify the bushing to accommodate the large diameter recoil plug. And this is the Tisas barrel, which, as you can see, I have ported significantly right through the bushing, and it works. Oh, it works. This gun shoots very fast, very accurate, especially for a 45. It has a Clonimus gas pedal on the non-functional slide stop. You can use it to lock the slide back, but it does not lock the slide back from the magazine, because on a match gun, a race gun, if you shoot empty, you screwed up. You're supposed to plan your reloads, so it doesn't need to lock back on empty. Ambidextrous safety from Clonimus also. Checkered flat mainspring housing blended with the frame, and then blended a little. I didn't blend it to that, did I? It's an oversight. Magwell funnel, which makes a lot more sense on a single stack magazine than it does on a double stack magazine that already tapers at the top. Custom G10 grips that I made with a 4.5mm carbide ball to texture it, and undercut trigger guard, all the usual bells and whistles. And this gun is super smooth. It's not super tight. It is tight, but it's not super tight, because the critical lockup in this is between the barrel and the slide, because sights are mounted on the slide. You don't want an excessively sloppy fit, but it really isn't necessary to have a super tight fit for a level of accuracy suitable to what I was doing with it, which is rapid fire at usually 5 to 15 yards. And up front, it has a XS sights, or express sights, big dot. The rear sight is just something I found in my parts bin and modified, and has a half round notch, so you can pick that ball up very, very fast, which is what the gun is all about. It's all about being fast. It is a match gun. This is deactivated, and the trigger pull is just a hair under 2 pounds. And the reset is incredibly short. It's 12 thousandths of an inch as near as I can measure. It's just right there. And it's an extremely adept rapid fire gun for shooting games, you know, high speed shooting games like Action Shooting International. And it is wonderful enough that after I reacquired it just a few weeks ago, it has risen up to be number 2 on this list, which should tell you something. And I just love shooting it. And it is just so much fun and so fit to task. Now, the reason I sold it was because that I happened across a full-size 9mm and decided to turn that into my ASI gun. And so this one I sold to a friend. He sold it to a mutual friend, and that mutual friend just swapped it back to me. The whole story's in the Prodigal 1911 video. But it just suits me to a T. But it is a purpose-built match gun for speed shooting. So it has limited applications, but I don't care. It is a ball to shoot. My number 1 favorite gun, and it genuinely is my number 1 favorite gun. Drum roll, please. All right, we don't have that. The Carry Monster. And this is the first 2011 I built. It uses an STI compact grip frame that I have retextured. And it is very, very grippy without being abrasive. Again, reshape the back, as I do on all the 2011s, to just tuck into my hand perfectly. Texture under the trigger guard. Monolithic chassis, shortened from a JEM Guns chassis. RRA slide and barrel, EGW flat wire recoil system. Random parts bin hammer. Clonus controls. No magazine well, because why? It's a carry gun and the magazine's tapered. Don't need a mag well. And just long enough for me to get a perfect grip on it. And it shoots ridiculously. Now the concept here was to make a carry gun with race gun performance. And it does. And mounted on it is a Siley enclosed emitter optic that I beat the ever-loving crap out of in the test. That video is up. And it is super solid, super durable. The window is big enough to be easy to use. And boy, that dot looks big on the camera. It's big enough to be easy to use, or it's big enough to be easy to use, small enough for concealed carry. Again, with the cut, slide, and ported barrel. This one is in 9mm. And it is set up so that when I remember and get around to it, I will put a Glock-style suppressor height front sight on it. But this gun is designed in that race gun ethos. It is designed for super fast, accurate, rapid fire. And I took it out Saturday morning to the Saturday morning meetup with the guys at the range. And I don't know, I guess I had my Wheaties Saturday because I was on fire at the range and just really reminded myself of how much I absolutely love shooting this gun. It, again, it has the lightweight slide with the fast cycling time. So, you know, low reciprocating mast, fast cycling time. The monolithic frame puts stationary weight up front, just enough. I added some lines here, some texturing, to make a sort of low profile gas pedal, which actually works. And it came out just exactly the way I wanted it to in terms of performance. And This is a gun coat finish, which looks almost exactly like the cold blue finish I had on it when it was in development. So that wasn't a huge net gain. There is no rear sight, but if I have the front sight and the optic, even if the optic isn't working, I'll be fine. It's just the way it shoots. And I have carried this despite the lack of front sight, and I will carry it again. This will be a wintertime carry kind of gun. And it's exactly what I meant it to be, and that's kind of worth a lot to me. Oh, and the grip safety is relieved to make it easier and more comfortable to get to ride to safety with your thumb. And the trigger is 3.5 pounds, nice and crisp, not match grade, but nice and crisp. And the reset is short even for a 1911, but it's not ridiculous like the ASI race gun is. And it's one of those projects where eventually it all just came together to be perfectly what I intended it to be. And it has actual utility in my life. And it takes normally the 16 round staccato magazine, and my backup is 17 round, which has one more round and just a little foot here at the bottom to keep it from being over inserted in the grip. And again, my texturing, which is done on a wood burner with a Maltese cross tip. And this gun performs, and it does exactly what I wanted it and intended it to do and always hoped it would do. And it has use in my life, and it is everything I would want a compact 2011 to be. And yeah, nice and smooth. It's just great. Love this gun. It's number one. So there you have it. My favorite guns, at least in the under 100 years old category. And even taking those into account, this is still the favorite. I've really got to remember to buy that front sight and install it. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd like to say thank you to my Patreons. It's very much a shoestring operation. Your contributions help more than you know. Also like to thank channel benefactors, those individuals and businesses who have contributed to the channel in innumerable ways and really helped make this work. And as always, shout out to Rain City Shooting Center for providing material support to the channel. So, I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.